It is 96.9 The Cow. Big show. And, it just gets bigger with my man. That's absolute brand new police chief, Joplin, Missouri, Dr. Pearson. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you this morning?
Man, I'm good. We had you on TV a little while ago, and now we roll on over here to radio just to find out how you enjoying Joplin so far.
We are loving Joplin so far. This is a great place to live. It's a great place to work. Everybody I've met is fantastic. Everybody I work with is fantastic. Everybody I work for is fantastic.
Yeah.
So things are going really well.
There's a lot of enthusiasm in, a new look. It's something fresh happening in Joplin. You kind of feel that energy when you're walking around meeting people?
I do. Joplin's a very warm and inviting place. Everywhere I go, people come up to me, shake my hand, pat me on the back. It's like I was doing another presentation, and I call it drive-by niceness. People just shake my hand and then just wander off into the darkness, and I don't know. I sit and wonder, what just happened? It was nice.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
It is, man. And you got some new ways of looking at things. And just you were talking about a program. Tell me about the social work and police. You mentioned that. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, I've got this program that I'm working on. It's for an embedded police social worker. And there's a lot of problems that the police run into on an hourly basis that we just don't have the wherewithal to properly handle. Homelessness, domestic violence to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Mental illness, drug addiction, things of those natures. We just don't have what it takes to properly aid those people. We can make an arrest, we can fill out a report, we can go to court.
Sure.
But how does that actually help a person get better? So my idea is to have a licensed clinical social worker embedded in the police department. I pay their salary.
Wow.
So they are actually a member of the police department. So when we run into situations like a child who hasn't eaten in a couple of days, or a victim of domestic violence that needs emergency housing, or a homeless person sleeping out behind a bush when it's
Sure.
12 degrees below zero, we can call this embedded police social worker, have them come to the scene, and it's a partnership. You hear about these things across the country.
Yeah.
Well, there's a partnership. We can take a step back. That social worker can arrive on scene, take a step forward. They handle things that we typically can't handle the best, and then that individual gets better service from the police because that social worker can do things that we can't do. They can plug themselves into all these other social service providers in the area and bring all these resources to bear for that person that we just don't have the wherewithal to do.
Yeah.
And then that social worker can work with that person for a week, a month, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Until that person gets back to being okay, until they're healthy and productive and happy again, so they don't have to come into contact with the police again. We don't have to keep making runs on the same person over and over again.
Right.
Because theoretically, the police are supposed to be trying to put themselves out of business. We're supposed to be trying to work to their zero crime.
Yeah.
And these police social workers can help us get there, because if we can reduce crime a little bit here and a little bit there, it's good for everybody.
Yeah.
That client, so to speak, gets a better outcome, because instead of just going to jail or sent back to that bush behind that tent behind the bush when it's 12 degrees below zero, that social worker is going to work with them.
Yeah.
It's going to get them to where they need, get them what they need, and get them taken care of in the long term, as opposed to a quick fix
Sure.
that the police would be able to provide.
It turns out to be more cost effective, probably because the energy of return calls on the same person
Exactly.
and man hours, it probably having a social worker is more effective.
It is. In the long term, you pay a little bit of money up front versus paying a little bit of money over time, which is going to wind up being more money in the long run.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of getting that initial amount of money that I need to get the program started.
Right.
I'm working with city government now, and I've not gotten any pushback from anybody
Yeah.
so far. The city council seems to like it. City manager seems to like the idea. Everybody that I presented this to in the community seems to like the idea. It just makes sense.
And that's where we are as a society now. It's when you say it's to help people from the inside out and not just take care of the problem, because it'll just be a slow leak.
Right, exactly. Police, to a certain extent, are Band-Aids. You have a cut, you call the police. We come and put a Band-Aid on it. We put a temporary patch on it. But this police social worker is a fix. They come and they heal that wound long term.
Wow.
So,
It does a lot for the force as well, working with that social worker as well, just your officers.
right. Because a lot of these officers out on the streets, as police, we only have certain authorities. We can make arrests, we can take reports, we can enforce the law and keep the peace. But what if somebody actually needs help? We're not the best service providers when it comes to long-term help.
Yeah.
So this police embedded social worker will provide that help. When I have an officer run into a child who's been the victim of domestic violence or child abuse at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of services available right then, right there. But this police social worker will be, because part of their job is going to be to, whenever a police officer calls them, they got to pick up that phone and they got to come out and respond. So I'm going to try to start out with one, unless, hint, hint, wink, wink, city council, I can get more money. But there's enough work for 5 or even 10 of these guys.
I'm sure.
Yeah, because the more work they do, the more work there will be. I anticipate this becoming somewhat of a pilot program for other police departments in the region.
Absolutely.
Because I envision this thing, once it gets up and running, being so effective, helping so many people, taking so much stress off the police department and the criminal justice system in general, that other police agencies and criminal justice systems across the state look and say, hey, wow, they've got it going on over in Joplin.
Yeah.
Let's see what they've got. And I'm going to tell them, nope, I'm not going to share it with you. I'm not going to tell you anything. This is my baby. And no, I'm just joking on that. But
bright ideas are shared and across the board. And Dr. Pearson, Dr. Chief Pearson, I think, I like it just makes sense. I heard those words, and it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's time in our society where we just use those words. It just makes sense.
There's so many things in our society, in this woke culture that we live in, that don't make sense.
Yeah.
That you see doctor in front of my name, but I'm not really all that smart. But I'm just smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough to figure this thing out on my own. So I don't try to reinvent the wheel. I look at what other agencies have done across the country. Then I come up with a little bit of innovation myself, tweak it a little bit for Joplin, and then try to implement it. So I try to work smarter, not harder. And I see this as a way to help everybody, the police department, the criminal justice systems, jails, the courts, people in general, because if the police aren't a public service entity, if we don't actually help people, then why do you pay your taxes? Why do we exist?
Wow.
So
wow, yeah.
I know that's a heavy idea, but if you think about it, it's true.
It's real, yeah.
Why do the police exist if not to help people? And I see this as a way to really help a lot of people in our community that need help. We've got this terrible homelessness problem that keeps getting bigger and bigger. Well, having an embedded social worker is really going to address that specific problem.
Right.
When we find homeless people, we can say, hey, I've got a phone number. I'm going to call this person. They're going to come out and help you. I'm not going to arrest you. I'm not going to write a report on you. I'm not going to write a citation for you. I'm going to call somebody who's going to come out here and help you.
Man, that's fresh.
In whatever vein that takes.
I love it. Dr. Pearson, thank you so much for stopping in. And I appreciate it, man. I love fresh ideas. Now you got my brain going, man. Good.
Call me anytime. I'll get your brain going anytime you want.
All right, 96.9 The Cow.